So today's little adventure, I'm going to see if I can make manicotti, which is an Italian kind of pasta. Reminds me a lot of an enchilada. Out of beans. G'day folks, Andy here from McDowell Manor. So the simple recipe I saw was a cup of water, which I've added, a cup of flour, which I haven't added. What I did was, I got half a cup of Madagascar beans, and they swell up a hell of a lot when they're rehydrated, so I had to kind of make a guess. What would make, if they was powdered, what would have made a cup of powder or flour from beans? So I had a guess. This is an experimental version. I went with half a cup of my dried beans, which I rehydrated, which I can see looking at is well and truly a cup of beans now that they're rehydrated. So a cup of water, a cup of bean flour, normal flour I've replaced with a cup of beans, and an egg. Well, I'm going to replace that with 4 quail eggs because I happen to have heaps. And that adds up to about the volume of an egg. So we should get a fairly loose batter thing that we can turn into a crepe, is the theory. I might add a pinch of salt as well. Well, there we are. If this works, I will officially declare myself to be a genius. If it all goes hell west and crooked, we shall never, I want you all to swear with me, we shall never mention this experiment again. All right, let's blend her up. Good luck, we're going in. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Check the blender quite properly. Here we go. That shook the lid open, you see. All right, well, I'm going to have to put the phone down because I keep needing to readjust. That's what you get when you use a dodgy old 1970s blender, folks. So we're blending pretty quick here. I wanted to try and get it to mix pretty well, and it looks like it is. Unfortunately, I've never really in real life seen the batter, but that looks like a really runny crepe to me. The other noise you can hear is the damn dishwasher. That's it there, bloody thing. Well, there you go. I spared you the worst of that. I tell you what, it's a lot nicer in this house when it's quiet. Hopefully this will work, folks. Let's give it a crack, eh? Normally you would use a fry pan, but of course I won't. I'm going to use a high-sided wok because I reckon the bottom there is about the size I want for the crepe. Let's have a go. Giving it a quick spray with olive oil. And on a sort of medium heat, I'll let that get hot. Then I'll pour in enough to just, when I sort of swill it round, barely cover the bottom. It's meant to be pretty thin. In another stroke of potential genius, or complete tomfoolery, rather than just tip it in, even though that's got a thing to tip, I'm going to use a ladle. And the idea behind that is I should get a fairly consistent manicotti that way. I might, in my own defence, I'll just mention that this random insanity is brought on by the fact I was in close contact with someone who's tested positive for COVID, so I'm actually kind of locking myself down. I'll test on day 3 and I'll test on day 5. If they're all good, I don't feel sick or anything. And you can tell I'm getting kind of bored here, folks. Well, that's what we're looking at so far. Hopefully that'll set. Otherwise I'm going to have a bit of a rethink, aren't I? First one I deem to be a complete and utter dismal failure. My thoughts are it's far too wet. So what I might do is add a cup of flour to that and see what happens. Okay. So all of the salvageable mix you can see I've thrown back in. That's it down there and there. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of flour, I've decided. Let's do this a bit gradually. That a bit of a blend and we'll see what we get, shall we? Here's the logic I've ended up coming up with. Not sure it'll work, but I think the logic's sound. The original recipe, remember, was a cup of flour. I estimated that my half cup of beans would make a full cup rehydrated. Why would I do that? That's not how you make flour. You make flour by crushing dried whatever. So I should have used a full cup of the dried beans, not a half cup. So on that logic, I've added, in fact, half a cup of normal flour. I don't think the type of flour matters. That's the whole point of this. So we've got half a cup of bean flour, equivalent, and half a cup of wheat flour. Not equivalent, because it is measured half a cup. And we're going to try this one. I'm also going away from the wok onto a flat base pan. The reason for that is I think it's going to be a damn sight easier to flip the manicotti if it works. Well, I'll be, guess what? It's working. So I flipped it a little early, but Houston, I think we have a success. Unbelievable. So I'm also thinking perhaps just a smidgen thick. But I reckon I can get round that if I am a little more careful. I'll add a bit more batter. So a ladle and a half. And I'll try to sort of spread it better as I go. So I may not be able to video that because what I'll be doing is obviously rotating the pan on an angle as I tip it in, but we'll see, eh? Okay, so in terms of concepts, that first one I'm well and truly prepared to call a win. Bear in mind this will be baked, stuffed and baked in tomato sauce, so wow. Alright, we'll try a second one, see if I can get it any better, eh? There you go, that's definitely worked better. And I'll just give you a look at the comparative sizes, and you can see that one is a lot bigger. It's doing exactly what a pancake would do, the way it cooks. Well, it's probably not far off a pancake, but it's going to become a manicotti. How good is this, folks? Now, believe it or not, what I'm actually doing here is just videoing the consistency of the batter, and that way I've got the idea, I think I've got the proportions, but if I videoed what the batter runs like, that will certainly help me in the recreation progress. Alright, so I am prepared to call this a hit. Part 1, the invention or testing the theory or proof of concept for a homemade manicotti using, I will move this to entirely beans. I reckon it's going to work so long as the proportions are right. I'm going to call it a hit, and I'm going to go back to calling myself a genius. Whew, for a minute there I thought I was a fool. So this is not at all how you cook manicotti, but I wanted to try it with 3 cheese mix and a rich homemade tomato garlic sauce, so I could taste the manicotti and see what I thought. I have to say, it is delightful. I will certainly cook it the correct way, where it's coated in a rich tomato sauce. I can see what the fuss is. It's fabulous. Right, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I've had fun making it. Hit the subscribe button if you have. If you enjoy these crazy antics, come along for the ride. Alright, catch you later, eh? Hooroo!